Hello y'all, this is Daisy, welcome back. I'm back with episode 5 of my attempt at the Tinytown challenge. We are on the 5th sim as well, so we have 2 following this one. I know I'm way behind a lot of other channels trying this challenge, but it's been a benefit to me to be able to watch them and get an idea of what I have in store when I get there. I want to start like usual and say thank you to those watching and commenting, and I hope you continue to follow along with me through this journey and then stick around for future videos. When we left off last time, Frank had met all of his goals and built his farmhouse, and he had worked for ages on growing the ingredients for ambrosia and worked with Beatrice to make a couple of plates that they fed to the ghosts of Azure and Mitchell, which brought them back to life. And I am happy to say that in this episode they do indeed stay that way. I didn't really make any more changes after finishing with him and just jumped right into getting started on this one. If you remember before, how could you forget? I was having an issue with all of them freezing regardless of the season or the weather. I didn't really get the warning this time around, so I'm just baffled at what was causing it, but luckily it stopped. I did have several things catch on fire, and when I finished this one last night, I had to reboot because it was snowing in the middle of the summer and it wouldn't stop, so I don't know what's going on. Again, in full disclosure, I did have to start over again with today's sim because they were killed by the Murphy bed and I got the game over message. I realized it was because even though I had Frank upgrade everything, I had to place the lot again from my gallery at some point, which makes all of the items new again, so all of those upgrades had been removed. Really frustrating. So I did go back in as Frank and have him do all of that again. I know some people would probably embrace that kind of drama, and that would indeed be quite fun to watch, but yeah, maybe sometime in the future, not with this first group. Alright, enough chit-chat. This time around, I actually used the randomizer wheel to choose my next sim, and ended up with Opal Gem. I was very happy to get her because after playing a couple gentleman sims, I was ready for another female. So this is Opal. As with the others, I kept her overall look, but added a few outfits and hairstyles to her wardrobe. I had seen someone mention that her name would be cool as Gemma Opal as well, and I came really close to changing it because that's just cute. But I don't know, I don't think she looks as much like a Gemma as an Opal. Maybe I just have Sons of Anarchy's Gemma blocking any other image of her, and if you watch that show, you know that this girl ain't that. So this is Opal, not Gemma. So our friend Opal here has the gemology skill, which comes with crystal creations, and she'll be cutting crystals into gemstones and making jewelry as well. I want to give just a quick explanation of how all this works, so please bear with me for just a sec. After they've been charged in the moonlight on the crystal grid, which you'll see in a bit, the stones and metals used in each piece have their own special qualities that are beneficial to any sims that are in the same area the piece is in, whether they are actually wearing it or not. Basically, the gem or jewelry piece may help increase satisfaction points, fill the sim's needs, etc. So the charged gemstones or jewelry pieces can be placed in the room as decorations, or with jewelry can be worn by the sim who owns the piece. Stones and metals marked as uncommon or rare bring higher rewards, as do the better jewelry pieces, and Opal will gain access to all of these more easily as her skill increases. I know it's a lot, but hopefully you get the gist. This was my first time playing with Crystal Creations pack since it came out, and I have to admit, I liked it quite a bit all around. The different benefits for each gemstone and jewelry piece is really interesting. There's a whole lot to this particular pack, and it's a little complicated, and I honestly found the challenge of it a refreshing change of pace and some of the mess we've been given lately, if you know what I mean. The only thing I wasn't happy with is the time it takes to create each piece, but it's realistic, I guess, just as it is with writing, painting, knitting, etc. It's just hard to have patience to sit and just watch them for so long. Anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into a review of the pack. I just wanted to explain some of what you'll see with Opal, and with that being said, let's move on to the adventures of Opal Gem. After moving everyone back out, setting them up as roommates, making sure the bank had all of the town's money and Opal had access, etc., we begin. To start things off, I ordered her a ranch hand to handle the farm animals and the garden, so we don't have to worry about any of that, although she will have to build a little of the gardening skill. And then she set off to check out her new little plot of land in Tinytown. She saw there had been a tent set up for her, but she doesn't fancy herself the camping type, so she figured she'd end up just storing that away and making use of the little rooming space her friends had shown her when she arrived. In Opal's area, she finds her gemology workbench and some gems to get her started. She sold the MySim for $80 and put the rest in her inventory for now to use as materials and keep costs of each creation down a little. For her first piece, she chose to make jewelry and chose a raw ring style using the eutranium and quartz she had in her inventory, making the cost to create it 50 simoleons instead of the 187 it would have cost without the supplies. And then she got to work.
Oh, and that's gotta hurt!
It didn't take long at all to realize that her craft is painstakingly slow with the creation of each piece. Even worse, she can't socialize or anything while she works like Frank could with gardening, Azure did with painting, and so on. So I'll be showing most all footage of her crafting on super speed so we don't fall asleep. It's bad enough I had to sit through it all the first time around. Three hours and one concussion later, she finally finished the ring, her first piece. And even though I've seen so many others doing this challenge end up with a botched piece time or two, hers was of normal quality on her very first go. Nice job, Opal. She put the ring in her inventory to sell on the market table, but she needed to take care of her needs first. So she used the public restroom and then was going to enjoy some lobster thermidor someone had whipped up. Man, she was eating better than Azure did when she moved here. Speaking of Azure, she had at some point learned to play the fiddle. Well, alrighty then. She sat down for a bite to eat and then put the ring she just made on the market table and raised the price to 300%, and in no time at all, it sold for nearly 600 simoleons. That was such a nice profit, she decided to sell the space rock as well so she could get some good supplies for her future pieces. That one took a bit longer, but when it did sell, it earned her another 300 simoleons. Later, when she went to close the safe she had accidentally left open, she noticed that her roommates had been gathering crystals from around the property and left them there for her. How thoughtful of them. Some were really rare, too. So she gratefully grabbed them all and made a mental note for the future to leave items for them in return. She felt really good about her successful first day, and that night as she laid her head on her pillow, she counted her blessings to be part of such an open-hearted and altruistic community. The next morning was a beautiful day. She made good use of the little apartment bathroom and heated up some leftovers for breakfast. Then she saw the townies had paid their rent, so she stopped and dropped that off at the bank. She set off to get some work done and decided to try cutting her first gemstone. She chose a simple spire-shaped one to start, and for the stone she chose sapphire because it said when it was charged the sim would gain mental skills faster and it would take longer to burn out with mental activities. Gemology is a mental skill, so she knew this one would be a good first stone to have and keep charged for herself. As soon as she started, she gained her first level in the skill, so we're off to a great start to what will hopefully be another great day. It had been a great day, but at some point I had paused recording and forgot to unpause and begin recording again. So we picked back up later, where Opal had worked well into the night. She had bought a crystal grid to charge her pieces in the moonlight, and made I'm not sure how many pieces at this point, but however many, they helped her reach level 3 of the gemology skill. With this particular crafting session, she made a basic bracelet and was proud to find that she was already creating excellent quality pieces. She put the bracelet in her inventory, and with her earlier pieces charging in the moonlight, she called it a day and put herself to bed. When she woke the next day, she said good morning to her roommates and set out to the market table to sell the bracelet she had made the night before. And once again, in no time at all, she sold that bracelet for almost 600 simoleons. After a quick needs refresh, she got back to it. She saw her sapphire she had charged in last night's moon was fully charged, so she grabbed it and placed it on her workbench so that it would help her gain her skill faster and avoid burnout. Now, her roommates had filled her in on all of the drama with all of the deaths and the ghost revivals with ambrosia and whatnot. She knew Frank had fireproofed everything he could, but she wondered if she could help in some way too. So she did some research and she found that the hematite crystal, when charged, makes the owner of that crystal immortal. She decided then and there she would make a piece of jewelry for every sim here, including for herself and even for the 2 others still to move in. Hopefully we would never have to worry with that mean old Grim Reaper in Tinytown ever again. She started with a delicate style ring, with the metal she had on hand called sadnum and the hematite crystal. She didn't have any of those on hand, but she reckoned the 220 simoleons it would cost to make each of these was certainly worth not having her friends die left and right, and I think I would have to agree. This one, she thought, she would charge and wear herself until she was finished with the challenge so she herself didn't have to worry about dying in the meantime. She was pleased to notice that the sapphire was working as expected, as she was hyper-focused on the task at hand, and the focus helped her to create an excellent quality ring. She set that one aside so she could charge it later, and remembered she needed to cut a crystal seed that she could plant that would eventually grow into a crystal tree that would produce a variety of crystals each time it bloomed. So she chose the seed-shaped gemstone and one of the quartz crystals she had on hand because the type of crystal used didn't matter, and it was a common one that is not too expensive, so it wouldn't be such a loss to bury it in the ground. Not long after starting, she hit level 4 of the gemology skill. And almost 5 hours after starting, she finally finished the gemstone. She immediately planted it in the ground, which gave her the gardening skill, and she would need to get the skill a little higher so she could fertilize the tree often to get it to the level of magnificent it needs to be in order to eventually meet the 3rd milestone in the crystal crafter aspiration. Bills were due, so she went to the bank to withdraw the 11,283 simoleons needed to pay them. And then she was feeling a little hungry and lonely, so she barbecued up some hamburgers and called her friends to come hang out and eat with her. Hanging out with her friends suddenly made her think of the whole random death thing, and she remembered she needed to put her ring of immortality on the crystal grid to charge in the moonlight tonight. She also placed a sapphire on the grid so it could charge back up again as well. Then she went back to chat with her friends again, since Beatrice and Mitchell had gotten home from work. Oh my, it looks like Mitchell had a really long day. She had had a really long day herself, and it had gotten really late, so she headed up to the apartment to get some sleep. The next morning, it was storming really hard, so she moved her workbench down to the basement, and then she grabbed her fully charged pieces from the crystal grid. She had thought to keep the ring, but on second thought, it would probably be best to go ahead and start giving these out to protect her roommates. Besides, she needed to gift someone something she crafted as part of her aspiration requirements. Since the metal she used was blue, she chose Azure to be the first recipient, and giving her the ring helped her complete the first milestone in the crystal crafter aspiration. To complete the next milestone, Opal needs to buy a crystal grid, which she's done, wear a fully charged jewelry piece, and plant a crystal seed, which she's also done. Azure absolutely loved the ring and put it on right away. 1 down and 7 to go. First things first, though, she was going to need to make some more money, so she headed down to the basement to start making up pieces she could sell. She also needed more crystals to set out while she worked to help with her needs and such, so she needed to work on some of those as well. With her fully charged sapphire nearby, she quickly hit level 5 of the skill with her next crafted piece, which ended up being an excellent quality bracelet. She needed to wear a fully charged piece, so she set it aside to charge later tonight. The storm had cleared up, and since there had been several large lightning strikes, she checked the property for more crystals. Sure enough, she found some jet, an expensive and rare crystal she'd be able to use later. She filled her needs, and it was back to work. This time, she made a bracelet with amethyst that she could charge and wear when sleeping, and it would help to bring her energy level up faster. It would also give her a higher chance of waking up with an inspired, lucid dream moodlet. Later, it was storming, but she was running out of funds to be able to afford each piece, so she set out some jewelry to sell on the table. She sold one piece for $5.88, and while giving a sales pitch for the next, poor Beatrice was struck by lightning.
Oh my God!
Luckily, she was a bit dazed, but otherwise okay. It seemed to take forever for Opal to sell the other piece, but it was worth the wait because she sold it for 1,528 simoleons. Poor Beatrice walked around for days covered in soot and complaining about it. Opal tried to drop some hints, hoping she'd catch on and realize she was getting a bit ripe, but no such luck. Completely oblivious. So Opal headed down to the basement where it smelled a bit better and got back to work. Before long, she reached level 6 of the skill. There had been a new moon that day, so the crystals and jewelry actually charged during the day, and that evening she was able to wear the charge bracelet and complete the next milestone. For the final milestone, and to complete the aspiration, Opal will need to grow a magnificent crystal tree, make 5 pieces of excellent jewelry, and complete crafting gemstones or jewelry 10 times while focused. Her crystal tree had sprouted and was already so pretty, but they take an incredibly long time to grow to full size and then to produce crystals. But she still had quite a while to go with her skill in aspiration. She still needed to make rings for her roomies and special jewelry for herself, and most importantly, she still had to earn enough money to build her tiny home that she hadn't even started building yet. Poor Beatrice was still walking around looking like a charred hot dog out of a campfire, while Opal read a book on gardening to get to level 2 so she could fertilize and evolve her tree to get it to magnificent. Then she worked on more jewelry and made level 7 of the gemology skill. Before bed, she placed the gemstones and the jewelry she had made onto the crystal grid to charge, and then saw her tree was ready to evolve to nice quality.
Nice!
At this point, it all becomes incredibly redundant and boring, so if you don't mind, I'm going to be skipping through a lot of it. Opal selected 5 crystals, each with effects that are especially beneficial to her on her quest to complete her skill and aspiration. She took each one and made 2 pieces of the same type of jewelry, so she could wear one and have the other charging, and then swap them out when the pieces that she had been wearing are fully drained. The following are the pieces of jewelry that she made for herself. First, she crafted earrings with jade. Once jade is fully charged, the sim, in this case Opal, will find crystals while doing things around the house. Now rings go on different fingers, so she made 2 of the same type with sapphire, which, as we saw before, allows her to gain mental skills faster and keeps her from getting burnout as fast when she is performing mental activities. Then there was the hematite. After making hematite rings for all of the roomies, she did make 2 for herself so that she is immortal while she is wearing them and they're charged. Next, she made bracelets using nightlight. With this charged crystal, her needs decay slightly more slowly, and Sims who are aliens will have their powers recharge faster once they're depleted. Truthfully, she didn't really need this one because of the next one. For this last one, she made necklaces made of plumbite. This rare crystal, when charged, increases the Sim's needs and then basically keeps them full until the crystal is drained. So once she is wearing one of these, she was able to just work and keep making jewelry to sell and to give away or keep for her own use around the clock without ever needing to stop and refill her needs. This crystal also makes other Sims happy when they are around her. So because of this handy little crystal, from the point that she starts using it, she pretty much just designs jewelry and gemstones day and night until she meets all of her goals. She worked on her crystal tree, watering it and fertilizing it as soon as the option became available, so it would continuously evolve until it reached magnificent quality. Being that it is currently nice quality, she'll have to wait for it to evolve to excellent, and then wait again until it gets to magnificent. I realize now that I probably should have made and planted that the very first thing. Live and learn, I suppose, even in The Sims. Poor Beatrice. Still oblivious. A little more work at the bench, and she earned level 8 of the skill. The good news is, at some point, Beatrice had finally realized she stunk and took a shower. The bad news is, at another point, Ziggy had also been struck by lightning, so we have another stinky roommate. Too bad there's not a crystal she can give them that encourages hygiene care. Let's be honest, she was really just tempting Mother Nature with having a sale in a thunderstorm again, but luckily the sale ended without incident and she walked away with $7,000. And I guess I had missed some recording at some point because she suddenly had maxed out the gemology skill.
Yeah! All right! Woo! Yes!
Sorry about that. At least she hit it, I guess. She finished the rings she had made for her roommates, so she gifted those to each. Mitchell's, and Azure's she had gifted her earlier. Then there's the one for Beatrice. Then we have Ziggy's and Frank's and our future townies, Annie and Cypress. And now hopefully there would be no need to worry about anyone else dying in Tinytown.
I certainly hope so.
I guess Azure had passed along her hippie/boho style, because later, while they were keeping Opal company, Mitchell quickly changed into this interesting but fitting ensemble and serenaded his wife. As she did with Beatrice, she tried to gently suggest to Ziggy he should consider a shower maybe, but also, like Beatrice, he couldn't be bothered. With her skill maxed out and her next milestone still waiting for a magnificent crystal tree, it was time to buckle down and focus on making as much jewelry as possible to sell and use to build her home. The apartment had certainly been nice to use, but it would be so much better to have a space to call her own here in Tinytown. So after crafting a couple dozen pieces and having a couple of sales, she finally had enough to start construction. And so here we have it, Opal's little spot of heaven in the middle of Tinytown. I used mostly Realm of Magic and the Crystal Creations pack itself to design her house because they tend to have similar styles and I felt like fit her aesthetic. I built this little deck area for her to sit and hang out, and I decided to move the house at some point, and when I did, the tree shrunk back down. It had actually grown and I forgot to show that, but like Deligracy, I did end up using a cheat to put it back to where it was because it had been fully grown. It was aggravating to see it fall again. So I used this little gazebo from the wedding pack and kind of thought it fit the aesthetic. I don't know that that's realistically something that you could easily keep outside of your home, but hey, this is a Sims and there's, you can do what you want. So inside we used a lot of her purple, which is her color. I gave her the little work area when you first enter, and it's got her little desk and it is all fully functional. I have play tested, it all worked just fine. The fireplace from Realm of Magic, little sitting area with a television. So with the bedroom, I did a little bit different. Decided I loved the window so much and I love that bed. And so I set it facing the window so that when she wakes up in the morning, she can sit up in bed and look out as much as you can look out through stained glass at the beautiful scenery that Tinytown has to offer. I do have a wall behind it and such, so it's not just, in the middle of the room, but I personally thought that was cool. So with the kitchen, again, in purples, lots of plants. And then her little bathroom here. It is functional, believe it or not. You can get that in all that in that one little space and it still be functional. So definitely tried to keep it as tiny home as possible. So with the community of Tinytown, we did go ahead and decorate the community as well. I'm still waiting for that tree to become magnificent. I made this town entrance, or however you want to say. I felt like we needed a better seating area outside, and so I designed this little deck area where they can walk up. Now, I changed the market table. I thought the plain one looked a little bit better. I expanded the garden just a little bit to tidy up the trees some, and I put a fence around it. And then I also put in this little area where it looks like a gardener would work and plant seeds and such. And so that was pretty much the gist of it, of all the changes that she made as her contribution to the community. So with that, she gets back to work. Ah, yes, I just remembered that I had paused recording again and forgot to restart and completely missed her hitting the final milestone. So, to complete this milestone and the aspiration, she has to max the gemology skill, which she did, and she needs to cut a gemstone worth 2,500 and also has to summon the Grim Reaper with jet gemstone or jewelry made with it. For what reason we need to summon him, I have no idea, but here we are. And with all of the storms that we have had in Tinytown over this whole journey, we have collected several jet crystals, and so we should have plenty to fulfill that milestone as well. Oh, and earlier I forgot to point out that alongside the crystal tree, I had placed 3 of the crystal grids. I just kind of liked this placement. This way she has one to charge her own jewelry, one to keep the pieces she makes for others, so for instance Annie and Cypress's are on there now, and then another for any other pieces as each only holds 7 gemstones or jewelry pieces. So this is our beautiful tree in all of its splendor, and it produces a good number of crystals each time it's ready to harvest. She cut several gemstones using rare and uncommon crystals, and the costliest cuts, but she just couldn't seem to hit that $2,500 mark. Then it dawned on her to use her satisfaction points and buy the marketable trait. Again, something I wish we had thought of sooner. Because after that, she crafted a crystal gnome and it was worth enough to hit that next requirement. Now all that was left was the jet gemstone and summoning Mr. Grimm. Earlier, she had cut a skull with jet crystal and had been charging it on the grid, so she clicked to summon Grimm, who didn't show up at all for some reason, but she had finally completed the Crystal Crafter aspiration. And with that, Miss Opal Gem is complete. Not the most exciting of the Tinytown adventures, but a good time anyway. I am gonna head on out with this one since this video is plenty long enough. Once again, I had so much fun with Opal, and I hope y'all had fun watching. If you did enjoy it, I ask that you please hit the like button and feed that algorithm to help my little channel. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already so you don't miss when I put out new content. I appreciate you stopping by for another video, and I hope you come back again for the next one. Till then, y'all be careful out there. Dag dag!